Hi, I'm Lunel. I paid for the entire trip to Europe. Flights, hotels, every reservation in my name. But at the gate, my mother turned to the airline staff and said I was causing problems. Just a disruption. Then my sister, she grabbed my boarding pass and tore it in half like it meant nothing. I stood there, silent. And then I did something they never saw coming. I canceled the whole flight, all of it. But what led me to that moment? What did I give up to take them there in the first place? And why did the truth, once it went viral, feel lonelier than the silence they forced me into? What kind of family treats you like the background character in a life you paid for? The morning air in Portland had that faint scent of spring clinging to it, even though the calendar still said February. I sat at my small kitchen table, clutching a mug of black coffee that had long gone cold. The soft clicking of my fingers against the edge of the ceramic cup kept time with my thoughts, which were as restless as the wind slipping through the cracked window. The tickets were spread out in front of me, printed, color-coded, clipped neatly with confirmation emails. My name was on every booking, not Callista's, not Verina's, mine. I had paid for everything: flights, hotels, ground transport, even the private wine tasting in Tuscany Callista had insisted on. Nobody knew. I never said a word. They just assumed someone else handled it, like always. I wasn't trying to play the hero. I just wanted this trip to mean something. Maybe if we could all sit at the same table in Paris, laugh under the Roman sun, stroll the streets of Amsterdam, we could undo some of the knots between us. Maybe they'd finally see me, not as the problem, but as part of the picture. Not as the one who overcomplicates, but as the one who quietly holds things together. I glanced again at the email I never told them about, the one from Harvard, full fellowship, data science, life-changing. I turned it down without blinking. That money, that chance, went into this trip. They'd never understand. But I didn't need them to, not right away. I looked around my apartment, sparse, tidy, efficient, like me. Every piece of furniture bought on clearance, every bill paid on time. But even in the quiet, I could hear their voices from yesterday. Don't forget, Callista doesn't do middle seats. And can you get Verina's luggage to the curb? Her back's acting up again. Of course. Later that morning, we met at Mom's house for what Verina called a pre-departure brunch. It wasn't really brunch. It was bagels and lukewarm coffee in the living room, with Callista clicking through her Instagram filters and Mom telling her which scarf looked more continental. I sat on the arm of the couch, watching as Callista handed out laminated itineraries with everyone's names and seat assignments, except mine. I flipped through the pages once, then again. My name wasn't there. I didn't even ask. I just waited. A full minute passed before I quietly said, "I think I'm missing from the chart." Callista barely looked up. "Oh, right. I figured you were economy like always." Verina added, "You have the card, don't you, baby? You'll figure it out." I nodded, but something inside me curled in on itself. As we gathered our bags, Mom tugged me aside near the hallway. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, in that syrupy tone she saves for when she's about to guilt-trip me. "Your sister's suitcase is over. Can you just cover the fee? We're running tight already." "No, thank you." "No, I know you've already done so much." Just expectation. I told her yes, because that's what I do. In the car on the way to the airport, I sat behind Callista, watching her braid and rebraid a strand of her hair while she rehearsed French phrases from her phone. Verina was scrolling through Pinterest boards for European looks on a budget. Nobody spoke to me. I looked out the window at the freeway signs blurring past and thought about the night I gave up Harvard. I'd sat on my floor, apartment dark except for my laptop screen, and deleted the acceptance email after wiring thousands toward flight reservations. I told myself it was worth it. A family restored was worth more than any degree. "They think I paid with a credit card," I murmured in my head. "I paid with years of sacrifice." We pulled up to the airport. I collected the bags, Callista's 2 massive rolling cases, Verina's leather duffel, my own modest carry-on. At the curb, Verena clapped her hands together. "Let's get through security quickly," she said. "Callista, you take the passports." I hesitated. "I already have everything printed," I said. "Tickets, confirmations, backup copies. It's all in my—" Verena cut me off with a light laugh. "You always overthink everything. Just let Callista handle it." My fingers tightened around the edge of my purse. Something twisted in my stomach. Not fear exactly, just a sense, like I was holding something delicate that nobody else saw value in. I followed them through the security line, the hum of the airport swallowing any last trace of resolve I'd clung to earlier that morning. We made it through without much conversation. Callista too busy filming a boarding with style clip, Verena fussing over whether the gate agents would allow her oversized carry-on. I trailed behind, clutching my purse like it held something worth protecting. Maybe it did. Maybe it was just me, trying to hold on to myself. We settled near gate B12, seats aligned like we were about to take a family portrait. Except no one was looking in the same direction. Verena had unpacked a crossword puzzle from her handbag and was murmuring synonyms to herself, while Callista was busy choosing filters for her pre-Euro adventure post. I pulled out the itinerary, not to check the time. We still had over an hour, but to make sure the layovers matched what I'd booked. I quietly said, "I just want to double-check the Rome connection." Verena waved her hand without looking up. "She's just a disruption," she said flatly. It didn't come with any venom. No raised voice. That was what made it worse. The words hit like they were meant for the space between us, not directed to me, but around me. And that was the point, like I wasn't even part of the conversation. I froze. Callista didn't flinch. A man across from us lifted his eyes briefly, then went back to his coffee. My hands folded the itinerary slowly, but inside, I felt it. Something shift. Something cave in. I'd learned long ago that with my family, silence wasn't always absence. It was often the loudest insult. I kept my face still, smiled, nodded. That's what good daughters do, right? But the air around me felt sharper now, like something had been carved out that wouldn't come back. Callista glanced up from her phone. "Okay, let's go through seats again," she said. "I've got Mom by the window, me in the middle, and—" "Oh, I didn't include you, Lunel." She said it like she'd forgotten to put ketchup on someone's fries. Casual? Inconvenient? "I added myself in the booking," I said, voice light. Callista shrugged. "Well, that's not what I printed." Verena looked up finally. "That's why we let Callista handle these things, honey. You complicate it." Right, I complicate things. It wasn't new, but hearing it now, in this setting, after I'd planned every detail, fronted every dime, it felt like stepping onto a stage only to be told the performance had been canceled because you were never part of the cast. I leaned back in the chair. The announcements above buzzed, unintelligible. I didn't hear anything except the beating of my own thoughts. Too loud to ignore, too soft to silence. They've always done this, I thought. When I was 14, I planned Mom's birthday from scratch. Homemade cake, handwritten invitations, the whole thing. Callista showed up with one bouquet and got all the photos, all the hugs, all the credit. When I was 26, I offered to co-sign Callista's first apartment lease. Verena told me I was overstepping. Callista told me it was creepy. I still drove her across town on move-in day. That's how it's always been. My help was welcome. My presence was optional. I shifted my weight in the seat, glancing at the gate window. The runway stretched wide and empty, planes rolling by like memories I wasn't part of. Verena laughed at something Callista said about budget fashion that doesn't look budget. Neither looked at me. They didn't even notice I had stopped laughing. And that was when it hit me. Not the pain, not even the anger. It was the realization that in this story, I was never written in as a character. I was just the lighting crew. I wasn't the problem. I was just unseen. When I got back to my seat, the boarding area was fuller, voices overlapping in every direction. People gathered by the windows, scrolling phones, flipping magazines, everyone in motion except me. I lowered myself into the chair, like I was settling into a truth I didn't want but had no choice but to accept. My purse sat on my lap, unzipped, the boarding pass slightly poking out from the top like a warning label. I didn't touch it. Callista was to my left, angled perfectly toward the window for lighting. I glanced sideways, just as she tilted her phone for a selfie. Within seconds, she posted it to Instagram with the caption, "The Preston Women Before Europe." Something nudged at me. I opened the app. The photo loaded slowly, Mom and Callista sitting side by side, beaming, their luggage stacked artfully beside them. I wasn't in it. Not off to the side, not blurred in the background, not even a corner of my coat. Because I wasn't there. I had gone to the restroom just 5 minutes, and they hadn't waited. I turned my screen toward Verena with a half smile, trying not to sound accusatory. "I think I missed the photo?" She barely blinked. "Well, you're always off to the side, honey. You disappear too easy." Then Callista chimed in, not even looking up. "It just looked better this way. It's about balance. You know, symmetry." Symmetry. Of course. A familiar chill crept into my chest. I nodded like I understood. But inside, I knew what it meant. I wasn't part of the image they wanted to show the world. Not even for show. I needed air. I excused myself, saying I needed to check on something at the terminal counter. But instead, I drifted toward the far end of the concourse, near the bathrooms. I stood there pretending to read a security sign. Just breathing. Just existing outside their view. That's when I heard Callista's voice, just around the bend, by the vending machines. She was on the phone, laughing, relaxed. I wouldn't have stopped if not for the words. "She thinks she can just drop money and control things," Callista said. "Seriously, she's literally tagging along. It's pathetic. She's just there so Mom doesn't feel guilty." I didn't move. "She's always like this," she went on. "Makes things awkward, you know. Acts like she's invisible, then gets hurt when people don't see her." My hand gripped the strap of my purse so tight, I thought the leather would split. There it was. The whole truth laid out in plain English, shared casually with a boyfriend over the phone. I was an accessory to them. An afterthought. A convenient piece of background noise to make their lives feel less empty. I walked back to our gate slowly. Each step felt like peeling off a layer of skin. Raw. Exposed. As I sat again, I kept my gaze low, my hands folded. They were still chatting, laughing, like nothing had happened, like no one had been just emotionally gutted in a public terminal. I didn't say a word, but my mind drifted back, as it always did in moments like these, to other cuts that came before. There was Mom's 60th birthday party. I'd organized every detail, reserved the restaurant, designed the place cards, ordered the cake. When the guests arrived, Verena told me, "Don't hover, you stress people." I spent the whole evening taking photos of everyone else. And then, that phone call 2 years ago. I'd offered to help Callista with her apartment search, even thought about co-signing the lease. She told me, "You're being invasive." Mom added, "Callista's the one people gravitate toward. You're more support." Support. That word followed me like a shadow. Support. Like a pole in the corner of the room. Necessary, but never noticed until it's missing. The gate attendant made a final call for boarding group 1. I sat frozen, watching a toddler run toward the window, his hands pressed to the glass in wonder. I wondered what it would take for me to ever be seen that way by my own family. I clutched my purse tighter. The edges of my boarding pass, still slightly crinkled from being pulled and repacked all morning, peeked out from the zipper. I was starting to see it, all of it, and the real erasure, the one they couldn't undo, hadn't even happened yet. I stayed seated as the boarding announcement buzzed overhead. Verena and Callista rose in sync, gathering their bags like they'd choreographed this moment for weeks. I watched their backs as they moved toward the gate, my mother's handbag swinging gently at her elbow, Callista adjusting her scarf just right for the photos she'd surely take mid-jetway. I reached into my purse to grab my passport and boarding pass, ready to stand. Maybe not walk with them, but at least not fall behind. My fingers brushed against nothing. I paused, rummaging deeper, slower this time. Then I turned to Verena. "Do you have my passport?" She turned halfway, not surprised. "Of course, honey. I didn't want you to misplace it in all that shuffle. You have a lot on your plate." Her tone was syrupy sweet, but I felt the sting underneath. Like I was a distracted toddler at a check-in counter. Like I didn't plan every detail of this trip. Like I didn't fund it. Before I could respond, she handed it over with a little pat on my arm, like I should be thankful. I nodded, tucked it into my jacket pocket, and said nothing. That's what I did best, right? Keep it quiet. Keep it clean. We moved forward in the boarding line, the energy picking up around us. People anxious to find overhead space, make their connections, snap a photo of the plane wing for Instagram. I held back slightly, letting Verena and Callista drift ahead. It was then I remembered something. I wanted to double-check our final hotel confirmations, just to make sure everything was synced correctly. I pulled out my phone and opened the shared email thread, the one I had created for all the bookings. Gone. Not a single email remained in the thread. No hotel confirmations, no itinerary attachments. The master spreadsheet was missing. My heart ticked faster. I blinked and checked my trash folder. Empty. I walked over to Verena, quietly. "Hey, did you happen to archive any of the trip emails? I'm not seeing the confirmations anymore." She looked up from her phone, unbothered. "Oh, that old mess! I forwarded everything to myself and deleted them. It was cluttering the thread. Easier to manage one central account." I opened my mouth, but closed it just as fast. The room felt smaller suddenly. Tighter. Like the oxygen had quietly slipped out and no one noticed. "So, they're not in mine at all now?" I asked, careful not to sound sharp. She gave that same motherly shrug. "Well, you'll be with us anyway. Don't worry so much. You tend to spiral when too much detail is in front of you." I didn't reply. I just nodded like I always did when I didn't know if I'd scream or sob. But my mind was already racing. I had paid for all those bookings, from my own account, under my own name. The reservations, flights, lodging, excursions, they were mine. And now, digitally and socially, I was nowhere in this trip. Not as a planner, not as a contributor, not even as a participant. That silence crept in again, the kind that doesn't just mute sound, it presses down on your ribs like a weight. Callista waved me over as she passed into the boarding lane. "Let's go, Lulu. We've got window seats waiting." Window seats. Like I'd be looking out at the sky, with a smile while they posted their perfect little snapshots. I didn't follow her. I stepped to the side, away from the line. I leaned against the tall charging station and looked at my phone. Still blank. Still erased. And then, like a sour memory I'd left rotting at the back of the fridge, another moment surfaced. I was 19, home for winter break. Verena had sent out the family newsletter that year, filled with updates about Callista's college accomplishments and their mother-daughter spa day. I asked why there was no mention of me. Verena replied, "You weren't in town for the photo shoot, and honestly, your major didn't sound very digestible for readers. I was studying statistics at the time. At 27, I helped plan Callista's engagement trip. Booked the Airbnb, managed the budget, even found the vineyard with the string lights she loved. But at the dinner party, I was introduced to guests as the helper. Not her sister. Not the one who made it possible. Just the helper. Always a guest in my own story, a background extra in a movie I wrote, cast, and directed. Now, standing beside gate B14, I watched my mother and sister disappear down the ramp, laughing about the snack bag they almost forgot. And I knew, this time, I wouldn't let them finish the story without me. I stepped away from the gate like I was stepping out of a shadow I didn't know I'd been standing in, the kind of shadow that doesn't cast itself in front of you, but wraps around your ankles, holding you in place while convincing you you're free to move. The overhead speaker announced boarding group 4. People shuffled past in hurried clusters, clutching passports and tote bags, but I stood still, eyes fixed on the glass pane in front of me. Outside, the plane sat like a giant waiting mouth, ramp extended, ready to swallow. My boarding pass was crumpled in my hand, edges curled from how tightly I'd been holding it all morning. I could feel the paper softening, the ink smudging just slightly where my thumb had rested. It felt symbolic in a way. Something official being worn down, faded, just like me. Verina's voice called out behind me, light and carefree. "Lulu, boarding started. Come on, honey." I didn't respond. Not yet. Callista added, "We're group 5. Let's not miss this for once, yeah?" I remained frozen for a beat longer, then stood, not toward the gate, but toward the window nearby. I walked slowly, with purpose, clutching my purse like it contained more than my ID and chapstick, like it held everything left of who I used to be. There was a chair along the edge, next to a tall glass pane, looking out onto the tarmac. I sat down gently, smoothed my skirt over my knees, and let myself feel the weight of everything. This wasn't hesitation. This was clarity. All my life, I had shrunk to make room for them, smiled to make others comfortable, bit my tongue so hard it should have scarred. And for what? To still be called too much and not enough in the same breath. To fund a trip I wasn't even allowed to exist in. A plane rolled past, wheels screeching against the pavement. I imagined myself on it, playing the part, smiling for selfies, enduring snide remarks masked as sisterly jokes, absorbing 1,000 little cuts, like usual, pretending this was a vacation. But it wasn't. It was a test. And I'd already passed. The passing grade just didn't look like approval. It looked like walking away. My phone buzzed in my lap. At first, I thought it was the airline app updating my boarding group, but when I picked it up, I saw a message from Odalis. 3 lines. Simple. "Stop trying to fit into places that need you invisible to function. Come home. I'll make coffee. We can sit in silence if that's what you need." The tears came so suddenly they surprised me. They weren't the kind that demand sobbing or heaving chests. Just quiet. Warm. The kind that feel like relief more than pain. I wiped my cheek with the corner of my scarf, folded the phone in my lap, and sat for a moment longer. Then I stood. Not shaky, not timid. I moved toward the gate, not to board, but to pass by. Callista was mid-conversation with a gate agent, laughing about needing a window seat for content. Verina was adjusting her cardigan, annoyed the line wasn't moving fast enough. I walked past them both without pause. Verina turned. "Where are you going?" she asked, more confused than concerned. "Just stretching," I said softly. "I'll be back in a second." But that was a lie. For the first time in my life, I told a lie to my mother, and it didn't hurt. It felt like self-preservation. I kept walking, past the gate, through the hallway that led back toward the security exit. At a quiet corner near an empty food court, I stopped and pulled out my phone. I opened the airline app. My name was still the primary account holder for the reservation. Every booking tied to my email. Every confirmation sent through my login. I stared at the screen, the blue Manage Trip button waiting patiently. I hovered my thumb over it. Not with anger, not with vengeance. Just peace. I wasn't running away. I was walking toward something, toward myself. I hadn't even fully turned when I heard the sharp click of heels rushing behind me. Callista's voice sliced through the airport noise. "Where do you think you're going?" she snapped, her tone just loud enough for strangers to notice. "You're making Mom anxious again." Before I could answer, her hand grabbed mine, the one holding my boarding pass. With a quick tug, she yanked the slip of paper from my fingers, like it was hers to begin with. And then, without a blink, she tore it straight down the middle. The sound of it, the dry, splitting rip, cut through the background chatter like a blade. A nearby child stopped mid-chew on his granola bar. A gate agent looked up. Two people in line turned toward us. Their eyes said what I couldn't say out loud. Did she really just do that? My body didn't move, not an inch. I just stared at her. Verena stepped forward quickly, one hand out as if to pat away the moment. "It was an accident," she said, forcing a small, brittle laugh. "She's emotional. She didn't mean it." Callista rolled her eyes. "Don't start," she hissed at her mother. Then she turned her fury back on me. "You always do this. You make everything harder than it has to be." I said nothing. "You ruin things, Lunel," she said, pointing with the torn ticket like it was proof of a crime. "Every time something's about to go right, you pull this passive-aggressive crap and make it about you." The silence around us thickened. Verena stepped in again, sighing like she'd been carrying the weight of my existence for too long. "This is why we don't let you handle anything important, because it always becomes a scene." I could feel the heat rising behind my face, but not from embarrassment. It was clarity. It was the final click in a long line of quiet realizations. They weren't confused. They weren't overwhelmed. They weren't misguided. They were cruel. I reached slowly into my purse and pulled out my phone. Calm. Centered. Not a single tremor in my hands. I tapped open the airline app. Verena caught sight of the screen. "What are you doing?" Her voice wasn't casual anymore. I didn't look up. I scrolled through the itinerary, neatly organized, every ticket confirmed under my name. One by one, I reviewed the reservations. Verena's, Callista's, mine. All tied to my account, my card, my presence. Then I tapped the button labeled Manage Trip. I scrolled to the bottom of the page. Cancel reservation for all travelers. One tap. The screen refreshed. Flight canceled. For a split second, there was no reaction. Then I heard the ding from Callista's phone. She blinked, checked it, froze. Verena's phone buzzed in her purse. She snatched it, scanned the screen, and her face paled. "You didn't." I met her gaze, finally. "I did." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The gate agent picked up the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. Flight 308 to Rome has been canceled. Please see the desk for rebooking assistance." The terminal buzzed. Confusion bloomed. Passengers murmured and shuffled in their seats. Callista spun toward me, eyes wild. "Are you out of your mind?" I tilted my head slightly. "You never asked whose mind was funding this." She stared at me like I had spoken a different language. "I paid for it," I said, slower this time. "The whole thing. Flights, hotels, the wine tour you were so excited about posting. Every dollar." Verena's lips moved silently for a moment before she stammered. "But you said—" "I didn't say anything," I replied. "That was the problem, wasn't it?" The buzz around us grew louder. A woman near the window said, "Wait, is this about that flight? I think I heard her cancel it." Another woman whispered to her husband, "Is that the one who tore the ticket?" The heat in Callista's face turned her skin blotchy. She looked around, realizing the eyes weren't just mine anymore. They were everyone's. A man 3 seats down shook his head slowly and said, "Damn." For once, I didn't lower my eyes. I let them look. Let them see what happened when silence met steel. Verena reached out, voice brittle. "You've embarrassed us." "No," I said, stepping away. "You did that the second you decided I wasn't part of this family unless I stayed quiet." And just like that, I walked toward the far end of the terminal, boarding pass in 2 pieces tucked in my coat pocket, my phone cooling in my hand like the end of a match. I didn't blink. Not when the gate agent glanced up, startled by the ripple of gasps. Not when Callista hissed behind me like a tea kettle about to boil. And especially not when Verena closed the distance between us like she was about to stage manage her way out of what just happened. She leaned in close, her voice clipped and low. "What did you do?" Around us, the crowd had shifted. People weren't boarding. They were watching. I could hear them. Did she cancel the flight? I think I heard her say something about it. One man near the seating area whispered to another, "That's the woman who tore the ticket." The airline display behind us flashed briefly, glitched, and reset. The red text read, "Flight cancelled. Agent assistance required." Verina's hands clenched around her phone like it might explode. She turned sharply to the gate agent. "My daughter tampered with the system," she said, louder this time, sharp with false authority. "She sabotaged our trip. She needs to be removed from your system." The agent blinked slowly. "Ma'am, all of your bookings are under the name Lunel Preston. As primary account holder, she has full authority to make changes." Verina's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Callista's voice rose again. "You've lost it, Lunel. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you want attention that badly?" I faced them both, slow and steady. I didn't raise my voice. "I didn't sabotage anything," I said clearly. "I just took back what you never thanked me for." The space around us silenced. Not just my family, not just the agent, the terminal, the passers-by, the travelers now unsure if they should keep walking or keep listening. Everyone fell still. Even Callista stopped mid-rant. Her mouth was still open, but no words came out. Verina's lips twitched, and I could see she wanted to speak, wanted to perform, but there was nothing left for her to control. She took a step back. "You embarrassed yourself, not us." I gave her a tired smile. "No, Mom. You did that all on your own." Verina turned toward the airline counter, trying to salvage what she could, likely ready to demand rebooking. Callista followed, fuming, her tone climbing as she berated the nearest staff member for incompetent systems. It didn't work. Another woman in line stepped forward. "I saw what happened," she said to the agent. "The sister," she nodded toward Callista, "tore her ticket. She yanked it out of her hand." The agent glanced at me again, then back at the screen. "Noted." A few others began to murmur. One young man pulled out his phone. I heard him say, "I got the end of it. That girl canceled everything. She must have paid for the whole thing." A beat later, another voice chimed in. "About time somebody stood up to that kind of family crap." I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. First message. "Is this you?" Second, a screenshot of a TikTok video. The thumbnail showed Callista snatching a boarding pass from my hand. Caption, "When they bully you your whole life, and you cancel the whole flight." Third, "Girl, you're going viral." I finally exhaled. I hadn't planned for this. I hadn't filmed anything. I wasn't here for payback and pixels. But it happened, and it was real, and I was done pretending it wasn't. From the corner of my eye, I saw Verina grabbing at the gate agent's counter. "My husband will hear about this," she threatened. "We're going to sue." But the agent, now notably calm, replied, "You're welcome to try, ma'am. But it seems the person who made the booking just exercised her right to cancel." Verina's face crumpled. "Just a little." Callista groaned loudly and stormed back toward the seating area, phone to her ear, clearly rallying someone on the other end. I just stood still. For the first time, I wasn't shrinking to make space for them. I wasn't defending what I already gave. I wasn't trying to be good. I was just done. And I wasn't alone in it anymore. 2 hours had passed, maybe more. I wasn't counting. I'd wandered away from gate B12 and found myself tucked into a corner booth at a small cafe near the security recheck area. My coffee had gone cold long before I finished half of it. I didn't order anything else. The hum of the terminal filled the background, but all I could hear were the vibrations of my phone, one after another. I finally turned it over and glanced at the screen. 2.4 million views. The video had gone viral. I wasn't in it intentionally, wasn't even aware anyone had been filming. But there I was. Frozen frame. The exact moment Callista ripped my boarding pass. My reaction, a still, deliberate silence, contrasted sharply with her explosion. And that contrast told a story all by itself. The caption read, "When your family pushes you too far and you take back your power." Comments poured in like a current that couldn't be stopped. "That sister's a monster." "She handled it like a queen." Honestly, good for her. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't used to being seen, much less defended. I sipped the last cold inch of coffee and leaned back, eyes half closed, letting the room blur just a bit. The phone buzzed again. Another notification. Then another. My name was trending on local feeds. Screenshots of Callista's influencer profile had surfaced. Comment sections flooded with people saying things like, "So this is the girl who bullied her sister and still expected a free vacation?" Verena wasn't spared either. Someone had dug up her Facebook profile, the one with the bio that used to say, "Proud mother of 2 daughters." The comments below that were a war zone. Maybe just proud of the loudest one? Erase one, lose both. This ain't it, lady. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's moment from the outside. A message from an unknown number slid across my screen. It was short. "I heard you paid for the trip?" I stared at it for a moment before opening my photo archive. Deep in a locked folder was a screenshot I hadn't looked at in weeks, maybe months. The original acceptance email. "Congratulations, Lunell Preston. You have been awarded a full data science fellowship at Harvard, fall term." And right below it, my reply. "Respectfully declining to prioritize personal commitments this year." The amount I would have received? Almost identical to the trip cost. I'd traded it all for the hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be the time my family saw me differently. That I wouldn't be the quiet one, the fixer, the overlooked problem solver. My chest tightened, not with regret, but recognition. They never asked me to give that up, but they never cared enough to notice that I did. I tucked the screenshot back where it belonged and locked the folder. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message from Odalis. Her voice was soft, low, like she'd just finished making tea and sat by the window. "You did what needed to be done, baby," she said. "And even if they never thank you, even if they twist the story to make themselves feel better, you didn't just speak for yourself. You spoke for every woman who's ever been erased by the people who were supposed to love her first." There was a pause before she added, "Come home, I'll bake. We won't even talk if you don't want to. You've earned the quiet." I played the message twice, then saved it, then played it once more. The moment didn't need more words. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the 2 halves of my torn boarding pass. I folded them together, creased the edge like a worn photograph, and tucked them into my wallet. Not as a souvenir, but a reminder. This wasn't just a clip, it was my story, finally told. 1 week later, the air in Portland was soft with that early spring stillness, where mornings start cool and quiet before the sun decides whether it wants to stay. I walked a narrow trail behind my apartment building, the kind only locals used. No cameras, no reporters, no Callista trying to rehearse a cleanup video for her brand. Just me. Finally, my phone was still on Do Not Disturb. It had been since the second night after the video blew up. At first, the silence felt foreign, almost unsettling. Now it felt earned. The world had moved on. A new viral moment had replaced mine within 72 hours. Callista's follower count plummeted, then bounced slightly, probably from people who just wanted to see the drama unfold. Verena hadn't called. Not once. Not even a voicemail saying she was disappointed, which surprised me more than if she had. The airline sent me a standard apology email and a voucher I'd never use. It included a statement saying their customer service protocol had failed during an emotionally heightened situation. That's how they phrased it. Like it was a technical glitch. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't even feel relieved. I just felt done. That kind of exhaustion doesn't have a sound. It's the silence you settle into after trying to fix something for too long, after begging, apologizing, compromising, and realizing you were the only one trying. Back home, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the draft email I'd written to Verena 5 days ago. It had sat in my inbox untouched, subject line blank. "I didn't need you to be proud of me," it started. "I just needed you not to erase me." That was it. Simple, honest, final. I hovered over send. My finger trembled. Not from fear, but the kind of emotional muscle memory you build over years of second guessing. Then I closed the tab. Some things didn't need to be said anymore, especially to people who never asked. Later that afternoon, I logged into the Harvard portal again. The fellowship offer was still there. No expiration. A quiet little line at the bottom. Fall term registration open until June 15th. It took me less than a minute to click accept, then another 3 to book a one-way ticket to Boston, leaving August 8th. Just me, 2 suitcases, and the quiet kind of strength no one could take from me. I didn't tell anyone. Not Odalis. Not the group chat with former classmates. Not even my old mentor from grad school who had encouraged me to apply in the first place. This decision wasn't a performance. It wasn't a statement. It was mine. That night, I made tea, cleaned the kitchen, and did laundry. Things that reminded me life keeps moving even when something shifts inside you forever. Before bed, I pulled the torn boarding pass from my wallet. I'd flattened it the best I could, lined the edges, and placed it in a small black frame I found at the thrift store. It sat now on my nightstand, angled just enough to catch the glow of the streetlight through my blinds. Not because I needed the reminder of what they did, but because I needed to remember what I finally did for myself. Choosing me wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, real. And maybe they'll never say sorry, but I'm done living on hold, waiting for their permission to exist. Some stories aren't just about who hurt us, but about how long we stayed quiet, trying not to hurt them back. Lunel's silence wasn't weakness. It was survival. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't loud, but it was lasting. Have you ever felt erased in your own family? What would it take for you to choose yourself? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We've got more powerful family stories just like this coming your way.